Hey guys, it's Claudia here. I'm one of the gardeners at Ripponlea Estate. Welcome to the Do-It-Yourself Vegie Patch session. Obviously on a 14-acre property it's pretty easy to pick a sunny spot, but in a home garden it's a bit harder sometimes. But you know, ideally as much sun as possible, sort of 6 to 8 hours a day is perfect. If it's a little less or a little more, things can cope with that, but that's sort of your ideal. Obviously in a backyard or a balcony, you've got neighbours' trees and shrubs and stuff like that, but you know, as much sun as possible is ideal, regardless of whether it's a garden bed or a raised bed or a pot. That's what you want. Sun, water, good soil, and you're good to go. One of the main starting points with a good veggie patch is to have good soil. You know, if you're doing in pots or raised beds, you can start with potting mix, but then the most important thing is to always add a lot of organic matter and a lot of compost, just to help give your seedlings and your veggies the best chance of, you know, a good start to life. You can get your organic compost from any sort of garden supplier. I won't say any brands, but yeah, whether you've got putting it in an existing garden bed, whether you've got clay soils, sandy soils, potting mix, it's always just so important to put in as much organic material as you sort of can, because that provides the nutrients for the seedlings to do well. So if you've got an existing garden bed that you want to work on and add nutrients to, it's important to add the organic matter and dig it into the soil before you plant your vegetables. And you can obviously add it after you've put them in, but it's really important to work on it before you plant those young seedlings, just to make sure that they've got the perfect environment to put their roots into and yeah, start growing and providing you with the veggies that are so awesome to have at home. So it doesn't matter really what you're planting them into. Veggies are very forgiving in many ways. You can use pots or polystyrene boxes as long as they've got drainage holes, and you can put them in yourself if they don't have those. You've just got to make sure that you can provide the water. The smaller the pot or box, the more water you've got to provide because it will dry out quicker. But it doesn't matter how much space you've got, you're still able to grow veggies at home. So to till the soil and to blend the compost with the existing soil, you just sort of lay your compost out over your soil. And this soil here is pretty good. It's a smidgen sandy, but it's really pretty good quality because we've had a lot of veggies in here in the past. And we just add our compost and then we just turn it in. You don't need to go too deep because you don't want to break up the structure of the soil too much, but just a little bit to incorporate that compost in will be enough. And then once you're done, try not to stand too much over it and recompact it, but just flatten it out again. Alrighty, so now that your soil is ready to go and you've picked your location for your veggie patch, now it's time to decide what you're going to plant and sort of how you're going to get it there. Whether you pick seedlings, whether the seedlings come in punnets or you buy established plants, it's up to you. It's all dependent on, you know, budget and all sorts of things like that, time. So firstly, you can select seeds. Now we're coming into spring and summer. You want to put in your warm season vegetables, so your tomatoes, cucumbers, zucchinis. Just start getting them ready, whether you're putting in seeds or buying punnets of seedlings or established plants. Now that the nurseries are back open, you can you can buy till your heart's content. All right, so if you're ready to put seeds straight into the ground, you've obviously got to refer to what the packet says, but things like peas are pretty easy. You can just create a little bit of a ditch. That's not the right word. Rill. I've never used that word. You can create a bit of a rill in the soil, and you've obviously turned this in so it's soft and not too compact. And then you can just sort of place them out roughly as per the directions on the packet. If you put them a bit too close, you can always pull them out as you need to. You know, if you realise, oh, I spilt the packet and 10 have come up here, you can just pull out the ones that you don't need. And seeds are pretty cost effective, so if they don't work, it's sort of a bit easier to handle. If you're not ready to put your seeds in the ground quite yet, you can always grow them in seed punnets, and again, just sort of put a couple in. Oops. Plant them and just make sure that they're well watered, and soon you'll have them growing up in there. And then once you're ready to put them in the ground or into your pot or into your container, you can then just transplant them into there. Alternatively, you can buy seedlings that are relatively established from nurseries, and it saves a lot of time, and that way you've got a pretty sure chance that the vegetable will survive as long as you give it the right environment to grow in, and it just saves a lot of time. You don't have to wait for the seeds to come up or do any of that sort of stuff, and they've been given all the right nutrients to get to this point, so it just saves you that hassle. And then from here you can either buy them in the punnets and separate them into your pots or your garden, which is a bit more cost effective, but otherwise you can buy plants that are similar to this and you just plant them straight into your garden bed or your raised bed or your pot. So to plant your seedling, you just dig out a hole a little bit bigger than the seedling itself. You want it a bit bigger so that the young roots have a chance to break into the soil that you've disturbed, so it's not too compact. And just tip it out, pop it in, and just make sure you don't bury it too deep. And there we go. And then you'd water that straight in. Give it a good drink, because while it's young, you're the one providing all the water to the roots. It can't search for water itself because it hasn't put its roots into the soil. So you need to really make sure that in this initial phase you keep up the water so that it gives it the best chance to put its roots into the soil and really get going and search for the nutrients and stuff like that. Awesome. So now that we've got our seedlings or our seeds in the ground, we can think about what we're going to use to stake them or support them. This one's obviously pretty young, but we would put in a stake. We could put it in now or we could put it in later, and then as it grows up, just tie it to the frame or the stake just to give it that support from the wind, and so as it gets fruit, if it's got lateral branches, they don't drop on the ground because then it's more prone to pests, and it's just easier to sort of keep your veggie patch neat if you've got everything staked or supported. There's lots of different things you can use. You can use a bamboo stake like this. These are really cost effective. They don't necessarily last that long, but they're pretty good just for the home garden. Wooden stakes, you can use old wire, old fencing pallets, trellis? there's lots of different things that you can use. A string or wire between two sticks can help hold up peas and beans and things like that. Just really anything you can think would support a vegetable. There's tomato sort of cages that you can use to stake your tomatoes. So just really anything you deem you could use. It's all trial and error, and it'll probably help support the plant. And that's the main aim, to support it, keep it off the ground and keep them growing healthy. All right, so now that we've planted our main veggie crop, or seedlings, we can think about what we can plant around them that's going to be beneficial for their growth and their health. We can plant flowers like verbenas, nepeta, marigolds, calendula, borage. They're all great flowers to bring in bees, and that'll obviously help pollinate your fruiting vegetables like your tomatoes, your cucumbers, your zucchini. Because a lot of the time, if you're not getting fruit, one of the main problems is you're not getting the flowers pollinated, so they're not creating any fruit. So you can plant flowers like that. You can also plant herbs, which they flower as well and attract insects, but they can also keep other detrimental insects at bay. You can plant your basil with your tomatoes, and they can help keep aphids away. Companion planting is just essentially either they mutually benefit each other, the plants, or one is grown to benefit the other. So it can be used in terms of shade as well. You could grow your tomatoes or your beans or your peas up a wire structure. That'll cast shade over a certain part of your garden, and you can then grow leafy vegetables, herbs in that area that's shaded from the hot afternoon sun, and your tomatoes are still getting their full sun. You're getting the protection for your leafy greens, and you're utilising your space really well, especially in a lot of home gardens we don't have a whole heap of space, so that's a really good way to do that. So another thing you can do is you can grow corn, and that corn will produce fruit and corn ears. And then you can have your beans planted below, and they will grow up the structure of the old corn canes, and then you don't have to stake. That's your in-ground stake that you're just utilising the old corn canes. So that's another really good way to sort of plants working together and providing the structures you need in your garden without having to go out and buy anything except for the corn and the beans.